There we go. It's Monday. It's Monday. I don't know what song we're listening to, so no credit will be given, and I apologize in advance. Wow, my hair is really bad today. Anyway, it's Monday. We're on chapter 2 of Reaper Adventures Imprisonment, which is the second of the Reaper Adventures series. Woot woot. Goodness gracious. I'm just a mess over here. Fudge. Sounds good. Anyway, it's Monday. We're on chapter 2. Don't bring your kids. It's no kid friendly. No kid friendly. It's for mature audiences only. There's no sex scenes or curse words, but there's a scene, or possibly more than one scene, of torture. There's a scene of murders by an archangel. And the escape from Eden's prison is later on, and you get to meet 3 new characters. So I guess continue at your own risk because, yeah. Anyway, this is a short chapter. It's a short chapter. There's no violence or anything. It's basically just a chapter where Cerberus trains Bayo, Bart, and Ayo, along with Loki and Mescanet and Damon, but Ayo and Damon, the new Reaper, have to figure out how to manifest their Reaper weapon. So that's basically this chapter. So let's move on now. First things first, though, possibly very late, but coffee. And there's my kitty. She's sleeping. Let's hope she doesn't wake up to attempt for me to scold her. Let's move on now. Oh my god, I'm wearing pink. Anyway, chapter 2. Loki and Damon, who was still invisible to the normal human eye, picked Mescanet up from Jeromeson High School the following day. The group of gothic teenagers, who had become Mescanet's only friends, waved their goodbyes and made sure Mescanet reached Loki before they went on their way. Now, the group of gothic teenagers are also Payne's friends, but they haven't seen Payne in a while, so reasons for that. Anyway, moving on. Loki took Mescanet's outstretched hand and headed away from Jeromeson High School, with Damon following silently. They reached the address that Bayo had given them and realized that it was an apartment complex. They walked to the front door and ignored the elderly woman who was hurling criticisms. I can English, apparently, not too well though. Criticisms at them, mixed with insults. The 32-year-old man sitting on the steps was also ignoring her as he calmly smoked a cigarette. He put a cigarette out when Loki and Mescanet reached the front door. He doesn't see Damon because, yeah. Oh, hi, Blackberry! Is there a Cerberus here? Mescanet asked. Forgive me. Mescanet asked the man. Cerberus? Mr. Underworld? The man questioned. Yes, Mr. Underworld. Does he live here? Mescanet inquired. Yeah, he lives here. He's probably asleep, though. He had a double shift and actually just got back a little while ago. The man informed Mescanet. Oh, back to sleep. She's a sleepy kitty. Oh, thank you, Mescanet said with a polite smile. A 28-year-old female with blonde hair, blue eyes, and pale skin emerged from the apartment complex. She stepped aside to let Mescanet and Loki through. Damon quickly slipped through the closing door and went to the second floor and knocked. And Loki knocked on the last door to the left, which was Cerberus's apartment, because Damon he doesn't know what's going on, so we gotta add that name there. Anyway, there was some movement, and then Cerberus answered the door, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, which you still don't really know the color of, do you? School's done already? Cerberus asked when he recognized Mescanet, Loki, and Damon. Mescanet nodded with confirmation. Something I don't normally listen to. Oh. Cerberus. Oh. Yeah. Cerberus mouthed, and then stepped aside to let Muscanet, Loki, and Damon inside. He closed the door behind them. Balio, Bert, and Ayo are closing up the Dragonfire bookstore and cafe soon. They'll be here shortly after that, Cerberus explained, stifling a yawn. Oh god, no, now I'm gonna yawn. Coffee, so I don't. Viva Vate, Loki said. Cerberus nodded to let them know he had heard them. Shortly after Cerberus had awakened slightly, Balio, Bart, and Ayo entered their apartment. Ayo made a fresh pot of coffee as Balio made themselves a fresh cup of tea. By themselves, I mean Bart. Bart is included because Bart loves his tea. After they all finished their beverages, they made their way to the surrounding woods. Cerberus explained what the rules of the training sessions were for Mescanet, Balio, Loki, and Bart. Ayo and Damon were instructed to see if they could manifest their Reaper weapons. After Damon's inquiry to what a Reaper weapon was, Cerberus explained to the best of his ability, and then him, along with Mescanet, Balio, Loki, and Bart, vanished to begin their training. Ayo glanced at Damon, who was still confused about what a Reaper weapon was. I got it right this time. You're having a hard time figuring it out, aren't you? Ayo asked with a kind smile as Damon looked at her. Damon instantly took note of Ayo's Scottish accent. Yeah, Damon reluctantly answered. 'Tis always difficult when you're a new Reaper. Ayo reassured Damon. That's true. I still don't know what he means, though. Damon sighed. Ayo became thoughtful, wondering if she could explain what a Reaper weapon was in a better way. A Reaper weapon is a manifestation of a Reaper's spiritual energy in weapon form, Ayo said. I understand that, but I've never had an image of a weapon in my mind's eye, Damon told Ayo. Don't worry, I don't currently have a fully formed Reaper weapon anymore either, Ayo commented with a smile. Damon decided that it was best to not repeat himself. You'll figure out what your Reaper weapon is eventually, Ayo said with a nod. Damon blinked with surprise and looked at her. None of us have ever managed it on our first try, she added as she sat down on a fallen tree. Remember, they're in the woods, so there's no actual chairs. So, moving on. Damon watched as Ayo lay down on the fallen tree and closed her eyes. Small, harmless blue wisps swirled around her as she fell into a meditative state. Damon sighed and settled down beside a snow-covered mossy rock. He closed his eyes, and after some time where he unsuccessfully relaxed, he opened his eyes. I don't know what is up with my throat lately, but it kind of might be just phlegm and allergies. It's annoying. He opened his eyes. Ayo was still meditating, the blue wisps appearing much like the myths of the Will-o'-the-Wisps circling around her. Actually, it's kind of sad. Most folklore of the Will-o'-the-Wisps are the souls of children who got lost and killed in the woods. Which kind of fucking sucks. Sorry. Anyway, moving on. Damon leaned his head back against the snow-covered rock and stared at the clouds that threatened snow. After a while, Damon's thoughts became fleeting as he examined each one, acknowledged them, and let them go. If they were important, Damon stored them in his mind for a later time to pick them apart and figure out why they had entered his mind to begin with. Ayo had already returned from a meditative state and was watching Damon as his green spiritual energy. Oh, there's levels to the spiritual energy. As the Reaper progresses in age and power abilities, their spiritual energy changes colors. So, anyway, moving on. As his green spiritual energy, green usually means they're new, surrounded his being like ghostly green flames that had no intention of harming Damon. Ayo was fascinated by the fact that Damon's spiritual energy didn't seem to be acting like every other Reaper's spiritual energy, which means that a lot of Reapers actually have that whole Will-o'-the-Wisps type spiritual energy movements. Not all of them, just a lot of them. Here's the explanation. Damon's spiritual energy wasn't like fairy lights, will-o'-the-wisps, or a small lantern light. His was what many would call dragon's fire. Much like an actual dragon's fire, it would cause no harm if the dragon didn't want it to. However, if the dragon wanted another person harmed, if that other person touched the unharmed person, that person would be burned, while the other person would remain unharmed. So if a dragon doesn't want to hurt one person, but wants to breathe fire on them, and another person they want harmed touches said person with the fire, the person the dragon wants harmed is going to be burned, while the person the dragon wants unharmed will remain unharmed, just with a bunch of fire surrounding them. Yeah, anyway. I figured I'd throw that in there. That's my interpretation. Moving on. Dragon's fire. Cerberus' voice breathed behind Ao. Ao jumped slightly and looked to see Cerberus, Mescanet, Balyo, Loki, and Bart watching Damon as she had been. Damon was slowly coming out of his meditative state and noticed that everyone was watching him. Oh, I know this song. This is Don't Blame It on the Kids by Aviva, I believe. It's Aviva, yeah. I know the name of the song, though. So, anyway, moving on. What? Damon asked nervously as he slowly stood up. Nothing, Cerberus replied with a smile. Damon raised an eyebrow. Nothing that you won't find out later on, anyway. Cerberus clarified with a shrug. Oh, yeah. The expressions don't match what it says in the book. Anyway, training is done for today. I'll be seeing you three tomorrow, Cerberus told Mescanet, Loki, and Damon. Cerberus, Balyo, Bart, and Ao left the woods, with Mescanet, Loki, and Damon following them. Mescanet waved goodbye to Cerberus, and then her, Loki, and Damon headed to their home after Cerberus returned Mescanet's wave. I did say this was a short chapter. We're almost done. Here we go. Cerberus, Balyo, Bart, and Ao entered their apartment. Coffee. The nectar of the gods. Cerberus made sure that Balyo, Bart, and Ao were alright. Yeah. They were doing well, even though Ao seriously wanted to be able to figure out what her Reaper weapon had always been before she had forgotten her horrific murder. Tends to happen. Cerberus had replied his typical response of, "Be patient and the image will enter your mind." Balyo was silent as Ao gave a frustrated groan, and Bart picked out a book and began to read. "I do practice patience," Ao complained. "Sure, but you're also trying too hard. While you have the patience you're also trying far too desperately to have the image of your Reaper weapon enter your mind. So while you may be meditating, you're not letting your thoughts go. You're dwelling on them and rejecting them, rather than accepting them and releasing them, or choosing to dwell on them later. You're pushing them away and then dwelling on them when they refuse to leave and return with a vengeance." Cerberus told Ao. "Meditating is clearing your mind of your thoughts," Ao countered. "Have you ever been able to clear your mind of all thoughts?" Cerberus pointed out. Ao was silent as she studied Cerberus. "Ooh, I nearly mispronounced that." "No," Ao reluctantly replied. "Meditation isn't about clearing the mind of all thought, because that's impossible. Meditation is more about letting thoughts enter your mind, dwelling on them slightly to see if they're unimportant, or if they're important to think about later, accepting your thoughts and letting them go, or storing them for later," Cerberus stated with a sigh. He wondered if it was making any sense, or if he sounded like a rambling idiot. Judging by Ao's pensive expression, he was making more sense to her than he was to himself. "I don't know if that made sense," Cerberus mumbled. "It did," Ao said with a smile of reassurance. "Oh, good, because it didn't make any sense to me," Cerberus commented with a chuckle. "I'm going to go to sleep now," Cerberus told them as he stood up and walked over to the couch. He flopped onto the couch and almost instantly fell asleep. And that is the end of chapter 2 as I said, it was a short chapter. There was no action or anything in that chapter, but more mentions of spiritual energy and a mention of they're being trained. So, I found that sheet of paper that I forgot last week, so we're all good now. Yay! Anyway, let's move on after I have coffee. The Nectar of the Gods. Ooh, I like this one. It's called Burn. I don't quite know who sings it, but I love it. Anyway, as for my accounts, I have a Wattpad account, which is at Tempesta771, a TikTok account, which is at AirgenCraven2, no uppercases and no spaces, under the name Tempesta Braveheart, an Instagram account, which is under the name and Tempesta Braveheart, no uppercases or spaces, and also if you can't find that, just look for AirgenCraven, which is my Facebook account, which normally I would not accept you if I didn't know you. However, I will attempt to do that. Except if you're really creepy, do expect to be blocked, because I don't like creepy people. Creepy people are creepy. I mean, there's different varying levels of weird, but even weird people can tell a creepy person from other weird people. Moving on. I have a Snapchat account. I said that right again. Yay, I'm getting the hang of that. Snapchat account, which is AirgenCraven. No uppercases and no spaces, and we're watching my YouTube, which is under the name Tempesta Braveheart. So, chapter 3 will be next week. We just completed chapter 2 of Reaper Adventures, Imprisonment, which is book number 2 of the Reaper Adventures series. So, yeah, we're good. We're good, and my kitty is asleep. You didn't have to hear me scold her today. Woot woot! More coffee. Probably really late for it. Anyway, peace out, Girl Scouts, and enjoy the mental hilarity.